Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you are joining us, you are probably deep in the holiday spirit.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes. But maybe more importantly, you are deep in some serious NFL playoff tension. It is Thursday, December 25th, 2025.
Christmas Day.
And the triple header the league gave us, well, it wasn't just some background noise for the holiday. It completely redrew the map for the final 2 weeks of the season.
It was a weekend of, extreme consequence. You saw the entire trajectory of two huge NFC North rivals get defined by just a single outcome.
And at the same time, there's just this massive volatility across the league, all driven by the one thing that always peaks late in the season.
Injuries. And specifically, injuries at the most important position on the field.
Exactly. So our mission here is to sort of move past the simple scoreboard and just distill this whole kind of chaotic web of news down to the three big high-impact things you need to know. We're going to unpack Green Bay's guaranteed playoff spot, the disappointment in Detroit, and this huge quarterback crisis that's defining one of the biggest games in Week 17.
We're basically giving you the shortcut to being completely up to speed on the state of the 2025 league right now, focusing on, context and consequence.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The Packers got their golden ticket while they were sitting on the couch.
Pretty much.
They locked up their playoff spot not by winning, but because a rival lost. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the key event was, like you said, almost poetic in its cruelty. Green Bay officially clinched a spot in the NFC playoffs because the Detroit Lions lost 23-10 to the Minnesota Vikings.
So it's a situational clinch.
Exactly. Your rival does all the heavy lifting for you.
And, getting a playoff spot because your rival failed.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like a backhanded compliment.
It does, a little bit.
But what really stands out here is the context of consistency for Green Bay. This wasn't some fluke. The source material really emphasizes that this locks in the Packers' return for a third straight season.
And if you zoom out even more, it's the 6th time in 7 seasons under head coach Matt LaFleur.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and if we connect that to the bigger picture, LaFleur's whole tenure just shows this high level of operational stability.
Right.
Reaching the postseason 6 out of 7 years, that tells you the front office, the coaching staff, they have a successful, repeatable process.
It's not just a flash in the pan.
No. Whether it's finding talent, managing the cap, whatever. That kind of consistency is, it's often more valuable than just one Super Bowl run because it builds this foundational expectation of winning year after year.
Okay, so that's the high note for Green Bay. But on the flip side, it's an absolute, you could say, organizational gut punch for Detroit.
Oh, completely.
That same 23-10 loss didn't just help the Packers. It officially kicked the Lions out of the postseason entirely.
And that loss pushed Dan Campbell's team to an 8-8 record. It just ends a season that the sources bluntly call disappointing.
Which is fascinating, right, because of the contrast. The contrast in their momentum compared to just, last year?
Exactly. One thing to finish 8-8 if you're, coming off a 3-win season and rebuilding.
Sure, you'd see that as progress.
But it's a totally different story when you think about the baseline they had set. The sources make a point to highlight that the Lions had just won back-to-back division titles.
Back-to-back. So to go from division champion to completely eliminated on Christmas Day,
yeah,
that feels like a massive structural setback.
That kind of regression in a single year, it just raises deeper questions. Was there success before based on a really narrow margin? Maybe some good luck with health that just evaporated this year.
Yeah.
LaFleur's program shows that sustained stability we talked about. The Lions, on the other hand, showed these really high peaks and then, a very steep valley.
So now Coach Campbell has to look at that 8-8 record and figure out what happened.
Right. Did the team lack depth? Or maybe, the strategic versatility to keep winning once other teams had a year to adjust to their formula.
You're right. That drop-off is just immense. But this whole conversation brings up a really crucial nuance that, I think listeners need to be super clear on. While Green Bay has clinched a playoff spot, they have not clinched the NFC North title.
And that's a critical distinction. It's so important because a division title comes with real tangible benefits. A wild card spot just means you're in the dance.
You're in the tournament, but you're likely on the road.
Probably on the road, maybe on short rest. Clinching the division, though.
Yep.
That guarantees you that all-important home playoff game and probably a better seed.
And this is where the drama, the really razor-thin drama comes in.
Yeah.
The Packers are still in the fight for the North, but Chicago Chicago holds all the cards.
They're in the driver's seat.
The division title, that home playoff game, it all goes to the Chicago Bears if one of two things happens over these last 2 weeks.
Okay, so first, if the Chicago Bears win just one more game, one game in the next 2 weeks.
That's it.
Or second, if the Packers lose just one of their next 2 games.
So, one win by Chicago or one loss by Green Bay. That is how tight this thing is.
It's incredibly close. If Chicago wins in Week 17, this whole conversation is just, it's over.
Done. The division is theirs.
But if they stumble, all that pressure immediately shifts right back onto Green Bay's final game.
The whole race is just hanging on whether Chicago can close it out or if Green Bay falters.
And that pressure, that shift, it leads us right into the biggest piece of volatility here. We have to look at Green Bay's huge Week 17 matchup.
Saturday night, hosting the Baltimore Ravens.
And this game has been completely turned on its head by simultaneous, really severe quarterback injuries on both sides.
Let's start with the Ravens, because the news for them is, it's a crisis. Quarterback Lamar Jackson is officially doubtful to play this Saturday.
And the specific detail we have from the sources is a back contusion.
A back contusion.
And this is where that deep dive level of analysis really matters. For any quarterback, right? A back contusion impacts your rotation, your power, your stability.
Everything you do.
But for a player like Lamar Jackson, who relies so fundamentally on explosive movement, quick cuts, a high volume of carries, a back injury is doubly devastating.
It's not just his arm.
You don't just lose his arm, you lose the absolute core of Baltimore's entire offensive strategy. Your backup QB, whoever he is, he can't replicate that rushing attack. The whole offense has to be redesigned basically overnight.
Which is just a massive blow to the AFC playoff race where the Ravens are fighting for critical seeding.
Yeah.
But Green Bay is dealing with their own huge uncertainty for the exact same game.
Right.
The sources say that Packers quarterbacks Jordan Love and Malik Willis are officially questionable.
Both of them. So this just raises a huge question. What does this mutual QB volatility mean for the quality, the legitimacy of such a critical late-season game?
Yeah, what kind of game are we even going to see?
Yeah. You have a top-tier MVP caliber player in Jackson who is doubtful, and then both primary options for the other team are questionable. It completely transforms what should have been a marquee showdown into, well, a survival challenge.
It really just becomes a test of institutional depth, doesn't it?
And coaching adjustments, yeah. Which team can rally its third-string guys? Which team can lean on its defense to get through a critical game? It's less about which star shines brightest.
And more about which team's backup plan actually pays off.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, this cluster of QB injuries really highlights the extreme physical toll of playing high-stakes football in late December.
Sure.
These aren't just minor dings. We're talking about core functionality. When the stakes are at their highest, the league's dependence on backup quarterbacks suddenly becomes the single biggest factor in who moves on and who goes home.
And that volatility wasn't just in the NFC North storyline either.
Yeah.
We should probably broaden our view a little bit to include the other big outcomes from Christmas Day.
Yeah, they all feed into this final playoff chaos.
The third major result from the holiday was the Dallas Cowboys beating the Washington Commanders 30-23.
And that result really helped solidify Dallas's position in that NFC hunt.
And guess what? That game also involved significant QB instability.
Of course it did.
The journeyman, Josh Johnson, started for Washington because their backup, Marcus Mariota, was ruled out with both a hand and a quad injury.
So it's yet another example. Teams are just dipping so deep into their QB depth charts right now.
And we also saw some other key injuries from that game that affect things down the line.
Yeah, the Cowboys tight end, Jake Ferguson, he injured his calf during that game. Ferguson is a huge target for Dallas.
A major safety blanket for their offense.
Exactly. Losing him, or even having him limited, really affects how they can move the ball against tough defenses in these last 2 weeks, which is critical when you're fighting for home field advantage.
And then one more. Outside of those specific playoff clashes, there's a high-impact injury that really affects the AFC picture, specifically Jacksonville.
Right. The Jaguars?
Sources are reporting that their cornerback, Jordan Lewis, is set to have foot surgery. He's going to miss the rest of the 2025 season.
And that is a significant defensive loss for a Jacksonville team that needs every single asset they have to lock up the AFC South title.
They're in a dogfight for that division.
They are. And losing a starting corner at this stage, while you're trying to fend off a rival, it just puts immediate immense pressure on your secondary depth. It's a cascade effect, you know? One injury ripples across the entire conference.
So, on this day of what's supposed to be holiday calm, The league is just defined by high stakes, acute injury risks, and a complete shuffling of the playoff deck.
It's all happening at once.
It's a moment of celebration for players and teams on social media, but you have to imagine that underneath all that, the front offices and coaches, they're just gripped by this incredible anxiety.
They are managing a crisis of depth and physical endurance at the absolute worst possible time.
So to bring this all back together for you, the core knowledge you can take away from this deep dive is pretty clear. Green Bay is in the playoffs.
Check. That's done. A benefit they got from the Lions losing to the Vikings. But their success is conditional.
Right. That all-important division title is still highly precarious. It all depends on one Chicago win or one Green Bay loss.
And crucially, the outcome of the Packers' huge game against the Ravens hinges entirely on a major mutual quarterback injury risk.
It's just a giant question mark.
That back contusion for Jackson, the questionable status for Love and Willis, it makes that Saturday game feel less like a chess match and more like an unpredictable, survival match.
It's not about predicting strategy anymore. It's about predicting who can even line up and play.
And if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, that concentration of high-stakes injuries, Jackson's back, Ferguson's calf, Mariota's quad and hand, Lewis's foot, it just suggests that this late-season push tests the cumulative physical capacity of the entire roster.
Not just the starters.
Not at all. The teams that invested best in their late-season training and their depth, those are the ones who are positioned to survive this.
That physical toll is just immense. And so finally, let's go back to the team that kicked this whole thing off, the Lions. We know they finished 8-8 after winning back-to-back division titles. The sources called the season disappointing. So how might the knowledge they gained from those title-winning seasons influence how Coach Dan Campbell builds his team next year?
That's a great question.
Knowing that the fall from champion to 8-8 was so steep, does he prioritize high-ceiling talent, or does he go for reliable depth in the offseason, given that they set such a high baseline, only to completely regress? That's something to mull over as the playoffs really begin.
Yeah, because building a roster that can handle 3 straight months of punishing football is often so much harder than building one that can just peak for a few minutes. Detroit faces a fascinating reevaluation.
That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for tuning in.